Hello, good people, and welcome to video 4. Technically 4, although I decided about halfway through making video 3 that I don't think I was going to post it. That got a little too deep in the details, and we don't need that this early in studying synthesis. I'll keep it. I finished it, but I'll keep it just as a maybe later in the semester, maybe a bonus video for those of you sick enough to want such a thing. But I think we're going to skip to this one in the playlist for these March 9th week classes. And what we're going to be doing here in video 3 is talking about how we can really design sound to copy either other like instruments we know or sounds that we know, and how we can also use the free VCV modules in place of some of the higher end, more featured third-party modules that you might also find. So I'm going to start with a couple drum modules, one from this brand Bufaco that I really love. I love the whole brand. The company's great. They make hardware as well. This is called Kickall. It's a kick drum sound. You might not be hearing that because it is a very deep pitch if you are wearing headphones, if you're not wearing headphones, your speakers might not be making that. So let me tune it up a little bit. There's a tune knob. I'll make it a little higher pitched. And let me make it a little longer as well, so that, once again, for those of you trying to listen on laptop speakers or whatever. There we go. It's probably better. Cool. It sounds less like a kick drum, but that's okay. That's okay. It still sounds interesting. The other one I wanted to show you that we will be copying, we will be recreating, is from a company called Hora, and it is hi-hats. There we go. And if you're not a drummer and you don't know kick drums and hi-hats, just understand that this is 2/3 of the rhythm of most songs. Most of the songs you might know. That looks like it's steady on right now and shouldn't be, but that's okay. Let's see. I need a button for this one because this doesn't have... The way Kickall has a button just built in so that I can trigger it, this does not. So you'll notice on the hi-hat module, there are 2 inputs that say TRIG for trigger, meaning it's where I'm going to send a signal to go play. The first is for the closed hi-hat sound. I can see that something about this is not right. That little output light, we shouldn't be having any output until we trigger it. So I can tell something's not quite right there. Let's see if it happens again. No, much better. Okay. Must have just been a little glitch. I'll take the trigger into the closed hi-hat sound, which should be this. There you go. Here's what it sounds like on the open side. And that's the second module we will be recreating today. But let's start with Kickall. Sending that signal. Actually, you know what? This would be a great time to introduce the mixer module, which is a VCA module. It's just called VCA Mix. It has 4 inputs with 4 CV controls, and then you can choose. You can use each output individually, so output number 1 is only what's going to input number 1, or it has one universal output called mix that is the combination of all of those. That's what we're going to use. This way I can go back and forth between Kickall and whatever we are going to build. So here is Kickall. Indeed. And really, this is just a VCO. You know, this is my whole audio path right now, all 3 of those. It's just a VCO. I say just, but in truth, it's actually a VCO plus kind of a very simple, this one slider is an envelope. But if I look at the VCV VCO, it has a frequency knob, and that is what tune does on Kickall here. And let's actually connect it. Let's hear what's going on. This will sound nothing like a kick drum. Sounds nothing like a kick drum. For a couple reasons. First of all, the frequency is wrong. So this tune knob, even though I say it's just a VCO, this tune knob is made specifically for lower audio sounds. So all the way up is what? About 125 hertz, it looks like. Whereas a normal VCO goes up to, I think, 6K in this case. Yeah, up to 6,000 hertz. So I had that somewhere down around here. Sure, what is that? That's 82 hertz. So I'm going to tune my VCO to 82 hertz. Once again, just right-clicking on a knob, we can type in a value. Let's hear that. Yep, that feels like the right pitch between the two. But you'll notice mine is always on if I pull up my slider. It's always on, which is why I said Kickall also has sort of a built-in envelope. It doesn't have ADSR. It just has this one slider. And what is that slider doing? Well, it's kind of a release, or maybe a decay. But everything else is just sort of in a fixed position. So let's get an envelope here, an ADSR. Stick to just the VCV modules as we recreate this. And I'm going to take the output of that envelope, which, remember, this is not audio. Envelopes are not audio signal, or at least not usually audio signal. This is a control voltage. At least that's how I'm using it, so we're going to send it to CV input. It's not in between the audio in and the audio out. It's going to be controlling this volume slider. So now when I trigger the envelope, we'll hear my VCO, which doesn't really sound like a kick because it has a slow attack, and kicks have very fast attacks. As soon as you hit a drum, it goes to maximum loudness. So I'm going to set my attack to all the way fast. My decay and sustain I'm going to keep very low, pretty low here. Really no sustain. There really isn't sustain. And then more or less release is going to mimic what the one envelope slider is doing on Kickall. So let's hear Kickall. Let's hear mine. So let's get a little more release in there. Guess we need a little more decay. Close. Let's turn mine up a little bit. I think Kickall's a little louder than me. Kickall. Me. Yeah, getting very close. Getting very close. Now, you'll notice Kickall also has wave shape. But in this case, instead of the 4 shaped outputs that my VCO has, it just has a knob that goes sine on the left, square on the right, and really you're kind of like morphing in between those two things. Let's put it all the way to square for a second and hear that. Kind of ugly. Let's use the square output of my VCO and hear that. Yeah, sounds about the same. They sound about the same. And then the only other thing that really we see is these knobs, time and bend. I'm going to focus on bend because I really like bend. Let's put this back down closer to sine here. Here is without any bend. And here is with a lot of bend. You hear how it puts a little like tick, a little attack at the beginning? If I use time to slow that down. Now, that tells us what it's actually doing. What bend actually does is it changes. It sounds like we're adding something to make that tick, but we're not. It's actually changing the tune, the pitch, at the very beginning of the sound, and then that frequency goes higher, and time determines how long it takes to get softer, to get lower, not softer, to get lower again. So let's hear this. Let's make it faster. Kind of has like an electro, a Detroit techno kind of sound to it there. So if I wanted to do that with my VCO, I could, if I could grab that frequency knob and just so quickly, every time I hit the trigger button, crank it all the way up and then back down really fast, that's what I would be doing. But first, my finger on the mouse cannot move that fast, and second, my mouse is already busy hitting the button. So that means control voltage. We could set this a control voltage to do it for us. That would be another envelope. So let's get another ADSR here, but this one's going to be faster. The attack is still instant, but this time we're going to be faster. So a faster decay, a faster release. And that isn't going to control volume because that's not what bend did. Bend was bending pitch, frequency. So if I send this up here to the FM of my VCO, FM, if I hover over that knob, stands for frequency modulation. And that little dial, and boy, this is what Video 3 was about, so I'm not going to get too deep in it, but we've talked about it briefly in class. I'll talk about it briefly right now. That little dial is called an attenuverter. At its default center position, it says 0% frequency modulation, which means anything coming here into that FM port, I talked about this in Video 2 as well, anything coming into that FM port, it has no impact. It's 0% matters. But as I pull this knob up, then that envelope speed will tell this frequency knob how fast to go up and then back to this position. How fast to go up and then how quickly to get back to this position. Let's just open FM all the way and see what happens. All right, now here's the next trick. I need to be able to hit both of these push buttons at the same time, but I only have one mouse cursor. So let's use the push button. Comes in handy. Take a trigger out of here and just go to both. Actually, I guess these are technically gate signals, so take a gate out of here and go to both of those envelopes. So now one button will push both envelopes. And let's hear kick all first, the thing we're trying to copy. Let's hear where we are. Oh, I changed the wave shape. Right, let's go back to sine. Let's go triangle. Kick all. So mine's that's a little bit louder and maybe even a little faster than the bend on kick all. So I'm going to back off the attenuator. Let's hear again. So now the only real difference is the wave shape knob here, because I don't have a way to blend. I could show you later, but right now, for the purpose of this is beyond the scope of the exercise. I don't have a blend between my sine wave and my square wave. So let's just put the knob all the way to sine and see if we can copy it pretty exactly here. There's kick all. I think mine still has a little more of that bend. Now I need a little more back. And with just a little bit of tweaking, we might be able to get it pretty close. There's mine. There's theirs. Back off my attenuverter a little. Pretty close indeed. All right, let's get rid of kick all and just keep my kick drum that I made. And now let's focus on this hi-hat, this idea of hi-hat. You'll notice there are three different kinds of noise outputs. Just pure noise, sort of a metallic output and hi-hat, but it is all noise. So in the same way that I said that kick all was just a VCO, hi-hat is just a noise module, which is our, the other main audio module for us. And I need a push button so I can trigger it. You're like, all these push buttons, isn't there an easier way? And of course there is. There's always an easier way, and we're getting to it. Maybe not in this video, though. Let's leave this video alone. Let's just make this about copying the sounds. All right, I want to copy that. Let's just move my kick off to the side here so that I can focus on just making this hi-hat for a second. Well, if you know, I said it's a noise module, so if you know it's a noise module, let's grab our VCV noise module. Turn this way down before I connect it because noise can be ugly all by itself. Yep, there it is. But once again, mine is just always on. And what we want is that nice short little envelope. So, envelope, well, I already said the magic word, envelope, ADSR. And because I've got this mixer, the mixer has a CV input for each one of the audio inputs. That means I don't need anything extra. I can just connect my envelope here to the CV input on channel 3. Let's make sure we got it. Yes. And now we just kind of have to shape that noise to sound like the hi-hat module. Let's hear hi-hat again. Very, very short, right? Instant attack. Almost instant decay and release. So even shorter than our kick drum was. Let's hear it. Let's hear it like this. It's close. It feels like the envelope shape might be right, but the pitch isn't quite right, so this one feels higher to me. Let's hear. Yeah, it's just like a little higher. Let's try a different kind of noise. Let's try the violet noise, which tends to be a higher pitch. Let's add just a teeny bit more decay. It's pretty close right there. Even a teeny bit more decay. There's hi-hat. There's me. Might even be yet a different one of these. Let's try blue. I don't remember what blue sounds like. Ooh, okay, that's hi-hat. No, I got excited. I thought that was me. That's hi-hat. It's somewhere in there. Somewhere in there. If I wanted to get really specific, I might even add in my audio path another filter. This might be the first filter we've used, actually. So let's put this in between noise and my audio module. So go in, so noise to my filter, and then the high pass filter is going to get rid of low frequency, which is kind of what I want. Let's hear it before I do anything else. I want to get rid of more low frequency. Okay. That's pretty close. What if I add a little bit of resonance to this? Maybe even get rid of a little more low frequency. I've gone too far. Boy, we've got all sorts of options. I'm getting farther away now. I've gone too far. Let's go back to where we were. There we go. That's pretty close to our closed hi-hat sound. Let's hear our open hi-hat sound. That is a little more decay and a little more something up here. This one might be a little harder to pinpoint. I like there's more. It has like a little bit of pitch to it almost. Yeah, I like there's more than mine. It's the wrong pitch, but it's pitch. And you can see how just kind of going back and forth, we could spend a little bit of time here and see if we could really dial in something tight on that, but I think we're close enough that you can see how all it's really taken us is, in the case of hi-hat, it took us 1, 2, 3 modules to pretty much copy what this hi-hat module can do. In the case of the kick, it took us 1, 2, 3 modules, although they were 3 different modules, to copy what the kick all could do. And the beauty of this is, once we understand what we're looking for, we can then explore beyond what any one commercial module could do for us. We can create our own sounds well beyond the design of any like one-stop shop like that. So that's our little video on sound design and copying other modules. Hope that was interesting to you, and we'll check back in for another video later.